So Governor Greg Abbott wants to make sure that Houston, the city of Houston, is put under the same microscope as any city that isn't allowed legally to be the quote-unquote sanctuary city.
But Matt, my problem with this is, why are we so worried about getting rid of all of the Mexicans or Hispanics that are quote-unquote here, if they're illegal or not? At the end of the day, many of them are paying taxes. Many of them have been here for generations and decades. And Matt, trying to get rid of 4 or 5 or 3 million people all at once is not going to work. We don't have the resources. And secondly, Matt, listen, there is no such thing as an illegal Mexican immigrant coming into Texas, because they're only coming home. Texas, Arizona, and California was stolen from the Mexicans.
Don't start
this
that
all
nonsense.
belonged to them. So they're only coming home. And then here it is, you white folks stole the land from the Indians, but yet you're the natural, real illegal immigrant.
En la pregunta de raza, ¿qué raza van a marcar? En la pregunta de raza hay blanco, negro, nativo americano o asiático. ¿Qué raza se consideran ustedes? Hispano. Hispano es herencia cultural, pero no es raza. ¿Alguna vez se ha puesto a pensar qué raza es usted?
Ay, no sé, puede ser la...
¿Es usted blanco, es usted negro, es usted nativo americano o es usted asiático?
Mi color, ¿qué color seré? Puede ser morena.
¿Alguna vez podría pensar en marcar nativo americano?
Sí.
Sí. Now, in the question of race, which race do you mark? Black, white, Native American, or Asian?
I think white.
White?
Yeah.
You consider yourself white? Not really.
Not really.
But do you know your race? Your history, your ancestors? Never thought about it?
No.
What's your country originally from?
Mexico.
México. En la pregunta de raza, ahí en pregunta dice si usted es blanco, negro, nativo americano o asiático. ¿Cuál marcó usted?
No, la de, ¿cómo se llama? La de hispano. ¿Cómo
Usted marcó hispano.
Sí, sí.
Ok, pero hispano no es una raza, sino una herencia cultural.
Ajá.
Pero hay otra pregunta que dice cuál es su raza. ¿Usted marcó esa pregunta?
No, o sea que no lo he llenado, o sea, no lo he llenado.
Okay. ¿Usted personalmente qué raza se considera usted? ¿Y usted? ¿Cuál es su herencia racial?
Pues ahí no estamos en ninguna, ¿sí? No, es que de esas no estamos en ninguna. No, pues la raza, la hispana, latina, o no sé.
No, o sea, ¿nunca usted se ha puesto a pensar cuál es su verdadera raza?
No.
Porque hispano o latino básicamente es europeo.
Sí.
Pero la mayoría, como usted ve aquí, la gente, somos mezclas. Okay. You live in the U.S., you're supposed to get the census form. You fill it up. What race do you mark? Black African American. What race would you mark? Now, when you see here, most of the people are from Latin America, right? What race do you think they are? Are they white, black, Native American, or Asian? Asian? What about you?
Same.
Really? We look Asian?
No, no. Oh, you mean like everybody together?
Yeah, most people here that you see that speak Spanish.
Now, what race was you saying?
Yeah. Are we white? Are we black? Are we Asian or Native American? Because Hispanic or Latino is not a race. It's a cultural heritage.
So what's the culture? So what is it? Native American, right? Native American.
Do we look Native American to you? Of course we are.
Yeah.
But I was asking most of them, and they consider themselves white. What do you think of that?
It's just a skin color for real.
Do we look white to you?
I consider y'all Native Americans more than white.
Exactly. What race do you mark on the question of race? ¿Qué raza marcó?
I'm confused a little bit.
Está confundido.
Yeah.
Okay. Entre las razas blanco, negro, nativo y asiático, ¿cuál se considera usted?
Blanco, negro. Esa es la confusión que no sé. Yo quería encontrar que era hispano, latino.
Claro. ¿Y usted se considera hispano? ¿Usted cree que sus ancestros son todos de España?
Yo pienso que sí.
¿Sí? ¿De qué país originariamente es usted? De México. En la cuestión de raza, ¿qué raza marcó?
Blanca, raza blanca.
Blanca.
Sí,
¿De qué país es usted?
Uruguay.
Uruguay. Ahora, cuando usted ve el resto de la mayoría de la población en este barrio, yo estaba preguntando y muchos de ellos dicen que son blancos. ¿Usted cree que esa es la verdadera raza de la mayoría de la gente por acá?
Yo creo que sí.
Sí.
Porque el moreno es moreno y nosotros los latinos sí somos raza blanca.
Okay.
Yo digo la raza digamos de color, la raza.
Ahora, ¿alguna vez se ha puesto a pensar que quizás...
Creo en mi pensamiento.
Claro. ¿Alguna vez se ha puesto a pensar si muchas de las personas son de raza nativo-americana?
Sí, es que hay también.
Puede ser.
En mi país hay también.
Exactamente.
En su país también hay.
Exacto. Bueno, muchas gracias.
Okay. Personally, if you will fill this form in the question of race, what race will you identify with? Are you white, black, Native American, Asian?
Hispanic.
Yeah, but Hispanic is not a race, it's a cultural heritage. But in race, which race do you identify yourself with? You don't know your race? Do you know your race? So basically, are you black, white, Native American, or Asian?
I don't know.
You never thought about it?
No.
Is that right? Where are you from, if I may ask? Mexico. Where about you? Mexico. Do you know there is a census going on right now?
Yeah,
Did you get a form?
yeah,
Did you send it back already?
yeah.
In the question of race, what race do you mark?
Race?
Race, yeah. What race do you write in? Do you write white, black, Native American, or Asian?
Black.
Black. And when you come here and you see most of the people who speak Spanish, what race do you think they are?
Hispanic.
But Hispanic is not a race, it's a cultural heritage.
Oh, what race do I think they are?
Yeah.
Indians.
In American Indians.
American Indians.
Yeah, but I asked most of them, and most of them say they are white. What do you think of that?
No, I don't think they're considered Caucasoid.
Okay,
But they're I don't think they're white.
exactly.
They're Indians.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't know this.
I know they don't know this.
And when you think the question of being Hispanic or Latino has to do with that?
No, you're right. Hispanic and Latino is a culture, because you could be black and be Hispanic also. So yeah.
Okay, you send the form back.
You probably do it. Oh, I didn't do the form.
Oh, you haven't done it? Are you gonna do it?
Yes, I'm gonna do it, but I didn't do it yet.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
¿Qué raza piensas marcar? Porque hay básicamente 4 razas, ¿no? Blanco, negro, nativo o indígena y asiático. ¿Cuál raza piensas tú marcar?
Pues yo creo que eso ya es de cada quien, ¿no? Eso ya de, pues...
Personalmente, tú...
Personalmente, pues... que es uno, ¿no?
¿Cuál es tu raza? ¿Cuál consideras que es tu raza?
Yo latino.
Pero latino no es raza, solamente hay blanco, negro, nativo o asiático.
Yo creo que blanco, ¿no?
Ok. Bueno, ¿te puedo preguntar qué país eres?
México.
Ok, muchas gracias.
Órale.
Ok. Ahora, cuando dice la cuestión de raza, ¿qué raza piensas tú marcar? ¿Cuál es tu raza? ¿Hispano? ¿Alguna vez han pensado marcar a American Indian, indígena americano? ¿O todos tus ancestros son de España? O sea, si hispano es porque tienes ancestros de España. Sí, o ¿cuál crees que es la verdadera raza que te identifica?
Mestizo.
Mestizo.
Ah, chingado, sí, no, así somos nosotros.
¿Qué es mestizo?
Oh, pues,
Una mezcla.
pues sí, por eso, una mezcla, palabra.
¿Mezcla de qué, por ejemplo?
Vamos de un país con un país.
En tu caso personal, ¿de qué mezcla tú tienes?
Pues,
¿De español solamente o de otras razas? ¿Solamente español?
Sí, solamente.
Ok. Bueno, ¿de qué país son, si les puedo preguntar? Guatemala. En la pregunta de raza, ¿qué raza han marcado? Ok, ¿les puedo preguntar de qué país son? México. Ok, muchas gracias.
Sí, guay.
White? You consider yourself white? Not really. But do you know your race, your history, your ancestors? Never thought about it?
No.
7. Write all these words for yourself which I speak to you today, for I know their rebellion and their stubbornness, before I brought them into the land of which I swore to their fathers, to Abraham, and to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, Unto your offspring I will give a land flowing with milk and honey. And as Jerveyahu always says, the United States is #1 in all agriculture and dairy. The place that we call Israel today, they're #1 in weapons. Or they're in the top 10 of weapons. So, which land that is not named here produces milk and honey? And that would be the land that he gave to your forefather Abraham. 8. They will eat and be satisfied. They will turn to strange gods, to gods that will not deliver them from any of their tribulation, and this witness shall be heard for a witness against them. Understand what has just been said, because you have been enslaved by a Catholic regime, an empire that has brought you this strange God named Jesus Christ. He is not the first Christ. He is one in a series of Christs that were brought to you by nations that were classified by the word as heathens. Greeks brought the Ethiopians. When they were in Egypt, Serapis Christus. Following the history of Serapis Christus, you will find he was the Egypto-Ethiopian Christ. As we move on, nine. And by the way, did this strange God deliver anyone? Or he keeps giving you the same Caucasian promises that are never fulfilled? I'll help you in the end. I will help you when it's all over. Verse 9. For they will forget my commandments, even all that I command them, and they will walk in the ways of the Gentile, and after their uncleanliness, and after their shame, and will serve their gods, and these I will prove to them an offense and a tribulation and sickness and a trap. Verse 10. Many will perish, and they will be taken captive. When we look up the word that the Europeans brought you, saying Jesus will rapture you, it is a carrying off. Does that mean you will be captive? Snatching away, rape. I'm going to read this again. 1600s, act of carrying off. When did the Europeans come over here? They came over in 1452. So if I type in Dum Diversis 1452, and I'm going to select this, and it's going to give me a translation, and I'm going to scroll down because the important is the content of what Dum Diversis is. The history of it really doesn't matter, right? Here's what it says. We grant you the kings of Spain and Portugal. Diaspora, right? Look at how these two nations combined caused some of the greatest diasporas. We grant you, kings of Spain and Portugal, by these documents. With these pieces of paper, we give you permission. These are permission slips. With our apostolic authority. This is authority given to them by the, what? The first Pope, St. Peter, right? Apostolic. That's Paul's name hidden in there. Post. Drop the two. Drop the T and the O. You have Paul. Change the S to a U. It's Paul. Change the O to the A. Switch those positions. P-A-U-L. Our apostolic. Even in the word apostolic, you hear the name Paul. With our apostolic authority. Paul is Arius Josephus. Paul is Arius Pisos. Flavius Josephus. Pen names. Arius Piso is the real name. There's coins of the Piso family. Going into the history of the Bible, you find the Piso family wrote books. Today you call them letters to different nations to encourage them to follow the law as they slaughter these people they're about to overthrow with these permission slips. Now, if in the book of Ephesians, and if you watch these videos that I've produced, I show you, it tells you these are the children of the Lord of the Wind. They are deceitful and disgusting and treacherous. And they were given permission from the Catholic Church to what? Permission to invade, search out, capture, and subjugate the Saracens and pagans and other what? Unbelievers and enemies of Christ. Now, when he states that, it says, whether they may be as well as their kingdoms. Take their kingdoms. Their duchies. This says go against Edom. Do you understand what's really going on? If we go here and we listen to what's presented,
so with the help of God, Daniel declares to the king what his dream was and tells the king the interpretation. Now you can find Christian books out there that will tell you that this statue is the European Union or the United Nations, but what did the Bible actually say? Starting in verse 37 of Daniel 2, Daniel reminds the king how glorious his kingdom was, and then he says, "You are this head of gold." The head of gold is King Nebuchadnezzar and the kingdom of Babylon. Then Daniel says that after the kingdom of Babylon, a kingdom of silver shall arise, and then after that a third kingdom of bronze shall rule the world, and then a fourth kingdom of iron shall shatter them all, and that fourth kingdom shall be divided. So what Daniel was trying to say is that this great big statue was a timeline, and each metal represented a kingdom. Daniel says that Babylon was this head of gold, and that those other metals after gold represent the soon coming world ruling empires that will conquer after Babylon. Who then was the chest and arms of silver? Well, who conquered Babylon? Despite Nebuchadnezzar's desires and ambitions, Babylon did not continue forever. It was eventually conquered by the Medo-Persian Empire, led by Cyrus the Great, who ruled from 539 BC to 331 BC. Medo-Persia was this chest and arms of silver. Who conquered Medo-Persia? It was, of course, the Macedonian Alexander the Great who led the Kingdom of Greece, which ruled the world from 331 BC to 168 BC. Alexander was one of the greatest military minds of all time, and an interesting fact, Greek weapons were made out of bronze. Greece was this belly and thighs of bronze. Who conquered Greece? On June 22nd, 168 BC, at the Battle of Pydna, the empire of Alexander the Great, 144 years after his death, perished under the iron monarchy of Rome. In verse 40 of Daniel 2, Daniel says that this fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron can break and shatter everything in pieces. Iron can crush gold, silver, and bronze. Rome was the greatest empire of antiquity. Jesus Christ was nailed to a Roman cross in 31 AD. Jerusalem was sacked by the Roman army in 70 AD. The legs of iron was Rome. Who conquered Rome? Verse 41 of Daniel 2 says that this fourth kingdom will not be conquered as much as it shall be divided. We now know that the fourth kingdom was Rome. If we go down history and find that Rome was indeed divided and not conquered, then we cannot deny the truth that this book that declared it from the past is a supernatural book. So was Rome conquered or was Rome divided? Rome was, in fact, not conquered from without, but was divided from within. By 285 AD, the Roman Empire had grown so vast that it was no longer feasible to govern all the provinces from the central seat of Rome. The Emperor Diocletian divided the empire in half, with the Eastern Empire governed out of Byzantium, later known as Constantinople, and the Western Empire governed from Rome. Not only was Rome divided in half, but from 351 AD to 476 AD, Rome was picked apart and divided even more by 10 barbarian tribes, which became 10 countries in Europe. Divided Rome is the feat partly of iron and partly of potter's clay. Now, I thought it was interesting that Rome was divided into 10 countries at the feet era of this prophecy. Is it a coincidence that feet have 10 toes? Very, very interesting. Who are these 10 tribes? The Alemanni today are the Germans. The Burgundians are the Swiss. The Franks are the French. The Lombards are now the Italians. The Saxons became the English. The Suevi today are the Portuguese. The Visigoths are now the Spanish. The Heruli, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals are now extinct, which was later prophesied.
So, that is very critical for us to understand. This up-and-coming empire, the empire that has the woman that sits on the water, that when you uncover her skirt, she has the genitalia of a man with the breast of a woman. There are many names for this thing, the Baphomet, Apollo, Apollyon, Abaddon. However you view it, it still exists. We have the Lombards pretending to be the Italians. The Italians were Edom, black, Negro. We have the pale tribes of Japheth called the Franks pretending to be the black tribes of the French. We have the barbaric tribe of Burgundians pretending to be the Swiss. And as we discovered in a few videos back, the Burgundians were again dark-skinned. So we really don't even know the tribe that's taking the place of the Burgundians pretending to be the Swiss. But if we follow the Hague Convention and everybody that uses that name, we find that they all go back to the Alemanni, whom are pretending to be German. When history books say the Germans spread to Sweden, Denmark, Amsterdam, those are really the tribe of the Alemanni. None of them are Germans. For the original Germans, the original Catholic Church, the original whole Roman Catholic Church was Esau. And when you see the images, they most likely will find them under African. African Holy Roman emperors. And then all these ancient Negro, African, black skin portraits come up. Duke. Here's Carlos, son of Charles. Negro. There's the true image. Leopold, the lion. Negro. This is Edom. This is very crucial to the lesson of the Book of Jubilees, so you understand what is being shown to you. Excuse me. Oh no, actually, if I had my Bible, I'd already have it highlighted in 36. Descendants of Esau. So when we go to the descendants of Esau and we start reading about this, right? Let's go to KJV. Right? We go to Esau's children. And we start to see something in 14:15, right? 16. In 14, it says the sons that were born. And these are the sons of Alabama. The daughters of Anah, the daughters of Zebeon. Esau's wife. She bare to Esau Yeshu and Yalam and Korah. 15. And these were dukes. Now one bloodline produced names with Y and J sounds and K sounds. Now the other bloodline produced dukes. Duke Timon, Duke Omar, Duke Zepho, Duke Kenaz, Duke Korah, Duke Godam, Duke Amalek. Duke of Earl. Understand, these blacks with no fucking rhythm are the dukes. These are the people whom are your brothers, whom the Lord, whom the Creator asks you not to be jealous of, because they had castles and kingdoms. Judah became jealous of his brother. At this point in history, they be cousins. And Judah went and built kingdoms to himself, naming himself kings. And this is why. The Edomitic Empire of Europe. What is the Edomitic Empire of Europe? It is called Edox. Why is it called Edox? Because biblically you are told Edom's land is called Edom. If they put in Edom, it'd be too easy for you. Because you do not respect the ancient names, because the ancient name is Idumea. So they changed one letter in the Jewish encyclopedia and thought the Negro will never find it. And again, if you open up Google and type in African coins, or ancient African coins, you'll find the only African coins are pretty much out of Europe. Now, notice all the pictures. We're just going to scroll up, say, for the most part, you just saw this on the other one. You just saw this image on the other one. If we go backwards, see the bull? See this one? See this one? Let's go forward. 1, 2, there's the bull and the lion. Do you understand what's going on? The quote-unquote Africans migrated up into Europe, whooped the shit out of the pygmies, took the land, and eventually created this empire called Rome. How can I prove this? We count 9 paragraphs down, the use of the name. They hide it at the end because they think that the Negro will never get to the end. Hence, we started in Jubilees, and I know you're thinking, when will he get to the end of the first chapter? The name Edom, used by the Talmudists. What is a Talmudist? Well, when I tell you, you don't believe me, just like when I tell you rapture, that Jesus means the snatching, the carrying away. So we'll open in a new link, and we'll paste this right here, Talmudist. So they won't give a definition for that there. We'll put it in here. Talmudist. A person versed in the Talmud. All right? Basis of religious authority in Orthodox Judaism. Right? The difference between 2 Talmud compilations. Right? The Babylon Talmud or the what? The Jerusalem Talmud. Right? This Bible or that Bible. The Bible of when they were free or the Bible of when they were enslaved. This is the game. So who controls the word? He who controls the book controls the slave, controls the world. Now, when we go back and we find out that Talmudists for the Roman Empire, well versed in the Bible, they applied. Now, this means they had the power of the pen when it had to deal with the Bible. So in a rough way, they're just saying the scribes of the Bible, the people that wrote, or the people that altered the versions that we have our hands on today. They applied the name Rome to every passage in the Bible, in God's word, right? There is no Rome in the Old Testament. So they didn't alter that in the Old Testament. Understand where it is. Understand how if Rome brought you the New Testament from Greek writings, right? And the Talmudists applied the name Rome to every passage in the Bible referring to Edom or Esau or Idumea. That means Edom scratched their own name out to hide from you in the future. At the time, I'm sure the Israelites knew who was enslaving them was their brother. I'm sure you realize that over the centuries, you would remember that until somebody comes and disconnects you from your history. Every time Edom is supposed to be mentioned, the name Rome is stamped in. And what does Romans say? The law is done away with, right? Follow Christ. Thou shalt not kill. The first thing that he's telling them to do is cross the water to slaughter the Israelites so you can know the covenant. That's what he tells the Ephesians. You think he's going to tell the Romans something different? Edom is compared to a boar. What does a boar look like? We know what a pig, a pink fat pig looks like. What does a boar look like? Black. Look at the fur. Remember the story of Jacob and Esau's furry? He had hair like a goat, like a deer. Understand what's going on. When I show you these African coins, these African images, these African statues, they still won't destroy. It's not African, it's Edom. It's Idumea. When I came out 2 years ago and figured, wait. These tribes are black tribes that have Esau's name. When I came out 4 years ago and said, listen, if it's twins, stop this magical madness. Stop, one was black, one was white. That's madness. You want to know where the white came in? It comes in here. When the 10 tribes destroy Rome over a series of attacks, over and over and over again. Look at a coin. Look at Haiti. Let me show you Haiti. If we don't find it today, it's okay. We saw it yesterday. I don't see it right off. It's okay. We saw it yesterday. There it is. Look at this shit. 1820. Right? That says Haiti, right? I'm not drunk, right? I'm not high, I'm not distorted, right? That's a brother, right? That's a brother, right? Now I asked for African, you see all these Caucasus pictures they show you at first, right? See what's going on? Don't you see this bitch online crying all the time? I don't want to sacrifice nobody. I'll be the sacrifice. Don't you understand what's going on? If I say show me a more, right? Africans, Europe. Africans, Europe. The more is the sand Arab, the sand nigger. If Moors invade Europe and Edux is Rome, and that's black Europe, then they black on black crime. This is when it becomes white on white crime. Black Rome is the iron. And when these unite, they come and overthrow you. And they put on your mind that you're just a Gentile. Verse 9, we will go up one verse. They will forget my commandments, even all that I command them, and will walk in the ways of the Gentile and their uncleanliness and after their shame, and will serve their gods, and will prove to them these will prove to them an offense and a tribulation and a sickness and a trap. Many will perish, and they will be taken captive. They will fall into the hands of the enemy, because they have forsaken my laws and my commandments and my festivals of my covenant and my Sabbath and my holy place, which I have made holy for myself in their presence, and my tabernacle and my sanctuary, which I have made holy for myself in the midst of the land, that I should set my name on it, that it should reside there. Now, how many people argue his name doesn't matter? Well, clearly right here. His Sabbath, his sanctuary, his name does matter. But you want to listen to somebody that was born a couple years before you or a couple years after you, when they say his name don't matter, when he formed all of us. All of us come through the woman. Whether you're human, whether you're a man, or whether you're a Nephilim, all of us come through the woman. All of us breathe his air. Yet all of us spit in his face. Each and every one of us are heathenistic when we know there are laws. We think we're getting away with something as we're constantly being watched. Nobody's alone, always crying out, we're alone. They will make high places and places of worship and graven images. What do we get when we deal with Christianity? We get crosses, and we get a whole church, right? Everything that deals with the Pope, man worship, idols dangling around his neck. Idols in the background, idols on his book, idols in the background, idols in his book. Each and every time you see this man, he is covered in symbolism. Do you not understand? He is the captain of the Freemasons. He steps up and they bow down to kiss his ring. Pope's ring, getting tongue bathed by Freemasons. This Freemason, right? Oh, here, world leaders. Don't you understand what's going on? Leonardo DiCaprio, world leader. What are you doing later? Oh, what a fine kisser you are. I'll be available. They will make themselves high places. Breast. Penis. Don't you get it? There's a penis. There's a breast. Don't you get it? There's a breast. There's a breast. There's the penis. Don't you get it? They will make themselves high places. There's the penis. There's the penis. That's Disney. That's Walt fucking Disney, right? They will make themselves high places. It's Disney World. This is adult Disney World. They will make themselves high places. They will make themselves high places. High places. High places. High places. High places. And places of worship and graven images. And places of worship and graven images. And places of worship and graven images. And graven images. And worship and graven images. High places. And places of worship. And graven images. It's fitting how that happens, isn't it? Places of worship. And graven images. And places of worship. And graven images. 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 Look at that. An Israelite. A Hebrew. Who knows where he's from? A Hebrew with the graven image. And graven images. In high places. In graven images. Each will worship graven images of his own making. Of his own making. In graven images of his own making. Thus they will go astray. They will sacrifice their children to demons. In graven images. And to all errors their hearts can work. 12. I will send witnesses to them, that I may testify against them. They will not hear. They will kill the witnesses. They will persecute those who seek the law, and they will abolish and change everything in the law, so as to work evil before mine eyes. Now, do not be fooled because this character is on screen. Because you do not respect what is said in the Ten Commandments. And what does it say? I am the what? The Creator, the Most High. Or maybe I should have that the other way around. Obviously, when I read that sentence, it makes more sense to say Creator for God and the Most High. For Lord. I am the Most High, thy Creator, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or in the earth beneath, or that which is in the water under thyself. Thou shalt not bow thyself down to them, nor serve them. Now, they done told you that Jesus died. He went into the grave. He ascended to heaven, and he shall come back. Where? From the sea. That is a combination of three Greek gods. Hades, the god of death. Zeus, the god of the air, ascension. And Poseidon, the god of the sea. Now, you do not have to believe me, because Jesus himself in Revelation tells you he is the morning star. We do not need to turn to Isaiah, the true prophet, and see that he says the morning star fell. He did not ascend, he fell. Now, if we clearly know that when we randomly put in biblical numbers and we accidentally hit 66 as in 666, we get Hillel. And that's how I found this. Morning star. Lucifer. How can Jesus and Lucifer be the morning star? Does Lucifer have two personalities? There's only one morning star. It's called the sun. And some people might write it as sun. But it's still the same thing. Look at that. How can Jesus be this original thing if there's a long line of this type of worship? You get deeper, there's more. All this is paganism. Mama worship. Because Dada went to war and died, and the spirit of Dada is watching over us. That's what it has to do with. This is what it has to do with. Sun worship. It's all sun worship. So, they will make themselves high places and worship, themselves high places and places of worship and graven images. Each will worship graven images of his own making. Now, don't think it stops with Disney. All right? There's many, many, many brand names that people have built themselves into companies. And people run around worshiping themselves, that stuff. If you understand the idea of brand name and trademarks, then you will understand when I write on screen rappers. And then I'm going to read this again. They will make themselves high places and places of worship and graven images. Each will worship graven images of his own making. Thus they will go astray. They will sacrifice their children to demons. They will cut each other down in the streets, selling drugs, claiming blocks that have other men's names on them. They will trick out their children. They will turn their daughters into whores. You know this. You've heard this many times. And what of these different people that you worship? What of these different people that you worship? When you take a deep look at them, you find the bitter truth.
This is what people looked like in Western Europe and Britain 10,000 years ago, not what we would have expected.
1, 2, 3, come on!
In museums, reconstructions, they look a bit like this guy has a spark to him as well.
I'm Chris Stringer, and I'm a research leader in human origins at the Natural History Museum in London. And I'm holding here this wonderful reconstructed head of Cheddar Man. And I've been studying the skeleton of Cheddar Man for some 40 years or so. And now with DNA technology, we've got the whole genome of Cheddar Man. And here we've got a scientific reconstruction of what he looked like. We've got his hair form, his skin, his blue eyes, and that dark skin colour, that combination really striking. And getting out of here information about his biology, the fact that, for example, he couldn't digest milk because that came in with the advent of farming after the time of Cheddar Man. So we're getting his whole biology, how he relates to people in Europe at the time, and how he relates to people in Britain now.
In a very bright light environment, and then like stuffed animal, you know this.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Like you can die.
And curl now with the heater.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Like Tom.
Like Tom. This morning, you know what?
What?
Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today, and I wasn't planning on making a video. I've got places to go and people to see, but I read something last night I thought was really fascinating, and I thought I would share it today while it's still fresh in my mind. And this comes from a book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, and I spoke about this in one of my last uploads. But this was written by this guy here, Ignatius Donnelly. He lived in the 1800s, and he wrote the book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, in 1882. A little bit about Ignatius Donnelly. He was a politician from Minnesota. He served in the state senate and later as lieutenant governor. Later he served in the U.S. House of Representatives. And he even had talks with the president back then at that time about finding Atlantis. And remember, this comes at a time around the Civil War when the first submersibles were being invented. And the president, of course, at that time was Abraham Lincoln. I thought that was always fascinating. But this comes from the chapter on North American flood myths, and I am just going to read this and then talk about this just briefly, and I'll let my subscribers fill in the comment section their thoughts on this. And it says, and I will leave this link below, in 1836, C.S. Raffines published in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a work called The American Nations, in which he gives the historical songs or chants of the Lenape, or Delaware Indians, the tribe that originally dwelt along the Delaware River. After describing a time when there was nothing but seawater on top of the land, and the creation of the sun, moon, stars, earth, and man, the legend depicts the Golden Age and the fall in these words. All were willingly pleased, all were easy thinking, and all were well happified. But after a while a snake priest, Powoko, brings on earth secretly the snake worship, Inatako, of the god of snakes, Wakan. And there came wickedness, crime, and unhappiness, and bad weather was coming, distemper was coming, with death was coming. And all this happened very long ago at the first land, Netamaki, beyond the great ocean, Kitiaku. Then follows the song of the flood. There was long ago a powerful snake, Maskanako, when the men had become bad beings, Makowini. This strong snake had become the foe of the jinns, and they became troubled, hating each other. Both were fighting, both were spoiling, both were never peaceful, and they were fighting, least man, Matapui, with dead keeper Nihawalowit, and the strong snake readily resolved to destroy or fight the beings or the men. The dark snake he brought, the monster he brought, snake rushing water he brought. Much water is rushing, much go to hills, much penetrate, much destroying. Meanwhile, at Tula, at that island, Nanabush, the great hare Nana, becomes the ancestor of beings and men. Being born creeping, he is ready to move and dwell at Tula. The beings and men all go forth from the flood, creeping in shallow water or swimming afloat, asking which is the way to the turtleback, Tulipin. But there are many monsters in the way, and some men were devoured by them, But the daughter of the Spirit helped them in a boat, saying, Come, come. They were coming and were helped. The name of the boat, or raft, is Moko. Now, there's a lot to go over here, but I'm just going to try to do this as briefly and as efficiently as I can, and then I'll leave it up to my subs to fill in the rest in the comment section with what they think about this. But this writing in the top paragraph reminds me of different cultures from around the world when they describe times a way, way long time ago. And of course, the flood, that is common in every culture. And I think the big flood, the great flood, happened around 9600 BC, give or take 100 years. And then that's followed with the creation of the sun, moon, stars, earth, and man. But it talks about a golden age. And of course, that is reminiscent to other cultures, such as the Egyptians, describing a time which they call Zeptepi, the golden age. And then it talks about the fall. And of course, that can be associated with the tall tales of the fallen angels coming from a time after the flood. And then it brings up the snake priest, Tumaco, who brings on earth secretly the snake worship. And brings on earth would have been a description of their known world, this tribe. So is Tumaco, who brings on earth secretly the snake worship, is he the snake priest, leader of a culture that built serpent effigies all over the United States? Nobody knows who built these, but here we have a tribe of coming from the eastern United States that describes a snake priest who brought snake worship all over their known world. I think that is a fascinating possibility, and it seems to blame the snake culture and the snake priests for a flood, and it seems to symbolize the flood in the form of a snake. And is this just people writing about a culture coming in and taking over, and they associate wickedness and bad things and disasters to these people? That is a pretty common writing, but I think that is a pretty common writing coming from ancient cultures who use natural disasters as kind of, in a moralistic or a religious tone. But I think the most fascinating thing here is this, the mention of Tula. At that island, Nanabush, the great hare, swims to the great turtleback, and it's a story of their creation, of their current world. Let's go over to Google Earth. This green area here would have been an ancient lake, and we are going to zoom into Tula here. This isn't a place of myth or legend. This is an actual place in Mexico. And this is associated with the Toltecs, and I believe they inherited a lot of their knowledge from the Mayans. But this place just looks special. Here we are down on Street View. A look around Tula, which is built on top of a mound that, if there was an ancient lake here, would have looked like a turtleback in ancient times. And it is written about coming from a tribe of Indians in the United States. People say there is no connection between ancient United States tribes and Mesoamerica. Well, here is a tribe coming from the eastern United States that speaks of Tula. And this place, I'm telling you, it just looks special, and I think it looks really cool and unique. So I think it's fascinating that it's written about in the current creation stories of Native Americans coming from the eastern United States that were documented. These stories were documented about 200 years ago. I think that is fascinating. And here is a good look as I pull out exactly where Tula is. And once again, this thing is just a mound that, if this was an ancient lake, it would have looked like a turtle's back. And I've talked about pictographs and things such as Monk's Mound, the Great Pyramid in Illinois, that I think is in representation of a turtle. Ancient tribes from the United States, we're talking about a place in Mesoamerica and their legendary tales.
I was talking about how the we're only being told about the Native American that looks European or that looks Oriental. But we're not being told about the Native Americans that look like us, because they don't want you to know that you're Native American. So this was a Native American city right here in this drawing, and how the Europeans were so surprised and how sophisticated it was. But some of you might say, man, you tripping. I don't believe you. I don't believe me as an African American, as a Negro, as an Afro-Mexican. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Alright, what is this then? What is that? Huh? Page 147 of the same book. Huh? What does it say? Surviving Indians. These are talking about the Aztecs. Surviving Indians were left without woods, water, or any way of making a living off of the land. In America, every time we go to war, what do we do? Like in Vietnam, what do? Korea. We destroy the crops, we destroy the land so they cannot feed themselves. What's happened in Hawaii? The most agriculture-rich land in the world can barely grow shit now. All we grow is GMO seeds and pineapple. In the United States, General U.S. Grant announced to investors that 7 million Aztecs are waiting to build railroads. Let me repeat that. In the United States, General U.S. Grant, that's before he was a president, announced to investors that 7 million Aztecs are waiting to build railroads. He dispatched this to the Rockefellers, the Aldridges, the Goulds, the Harrimans, the Guggenheims, and McCormicks. Look at that. That's all the rich families. They quickly seized the opportunity to buy cheap land and hire dirt cheap labor to operate rail and mine concessions. The Creole scientificals, acting as middlemen and legal advisors, amassed quick fortunes through large legal fees, stock manipulations, kickbacks, payoffs, and such subtle trickery as selling arms and ammunition to the Indian rebels that the government was officially exterminating. Isn't that the same thing that is done today? I'm telling you that those sayings, like, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. These sayings are not just sayings, they're truth. You need to learn your history. Though millions vanished into the pockets of the scientificals, little of the wealth trickled down. Practically nothing was spent on schooling or education. Real wages were reduced to less than they had been a century earlier under the Spaniards. What I want to point out is it says that 7 million Aztecs were waiting to build the railroad. What this book and what history tells you is that the Aztec and the Mayan were Negroid races, was a descent from Israel, an Asiatic type of Negro where they had Afro hair and full beards and Asiatic eyes. The noses are big, but not as big as their African counterparts. Those are Aztecs. What this is saying, what we've learned through history is that the railroads were built by Negroes or Africans. And we learned that the railroads were built by Asians. What this is telling you is that the railroads were actually built by Asiatic Negroes of the Aztec kind. If you do research, there was less than 1,000 Chinese or Asians throughout the whole railroad building, but most of them were shopkeepers, so that's not even, it's not even legit. So you gotta know, it says Aztec 7 million. You know how much that is? That's a lot. 7 million of you guys were Aztec Indians, and the descendants of them might be you. And you think you're African on a slave ship when you are the Mayans and the Aztecs, or the Pawnee Indians, or the Anasazi. You know what I mean? Some of these are the same. They like to just throw around names. The Mississippians. Come on now. The Floridians. So that proves that this is all about you, all about us, all about all of us Native Americans. Not just the ones we see every day. Right. Look at this brother. Come on. Come on. Come on. I just see my friend who led that today. It's crazy. Look at these. Come on. Come on, come on. Am I just tripping? The Yamasee War. Huh? This is the Gual War. These were the chiefdoms. And then when they are getting beaten by war, they end up going to different things like the Yamasee and then the Seminole. But we never stopped fighting. So they figured if we tell them they're from Africa, maybe they won't fight for their land. And they'll have to pay taxes, and then they'll be known as immigrants, and then they'll be subject to our laws and penalties. And then they'll have to come into our commercial atmosphere when they're farmers and hunters. They don't need the money. But that's what they do, man. They take away your water source and your food.